Welcome to another episode of the Grim and Bloody Podcast. Kevin Nicholson here for writer for horrornews.net, Scary Monsters Magazine, and proud to say that now a co-host of the Rondo Award nominated Grim and Bloody Podcast. And well,
congratulations.
We got to talk about that because I don't know what happens after you get nominated.
Okay, we will talk. With me today, as you can hear and see his image and his voice, is Anthony Derone, the founder of the Grim and Bloody Podcast. I was going to say formerly Death Parade Film Fest, but that's way in the past. Anthony, how are you?
Good.
We are here with a very special occasion with a special effects guru. I love saying that word, a guru. It brings up Tom Savini, and it brings up, Rob Bottin. It brings up others, and we brings up for us, Billy Coyne.
Yay! Thanks for having me, guys.
From a segment of American Sasquatch, which is a load of fun, and we're going to talk about that. But you've had quite the career doing this stuff.
I mean, I love it. It's still very much an interesting ride, and I have no signs of slowing down. And I love what I do.
So you love getting involved, getting yourself neck deep in grease paint and gore. Basically.
Yeah, I mean, it comes with the territory when you want to learn a trade like special makeup effects. I mean, some productions might want to be a little more conservative and maybe not have that much blood, and I've been on those sets, but just ones where more is not enough, and they just want wretched excess of gore. We'll whip up gallons of blood, whip up whatever crazy substance that we need to, or lay however many prosthetics on someone to turn them into whatever.
So were you kind of the kid growing up like I was? Me, on one hand, as a writer on it and a reviewer, I needed to find out how a film was put together, meaning how direction was done, how this scene is blocked, it's lit, it's all this. What does this mean? Were you the person that saw a prop and said, I want to find out how they made that?
Well, I'll never forget. I mean, I think a lot of us, when we're little, we discovered the world of Jim Henson rather young. For me, when I first saw Kermit and you see the black rods, my mind automatically went to the rods. And I'm like, I'm curious, like, what exactly is that? Because I can see he's clearly a sock with, some stuff, and I love the character of Kermit. I mean, Jim Henson is an amazing inspiration, but the rods were always like, what's the story with that? And so that's where I think I gravitated towards the behind the scenes. I think early on, or how the sausage is made from a very young age, and I always kind of took that with me, because everything I would watch from a young age, I would kind of question, wow, that's great, I really enjoyed it. And when I'm young, I want to watch it a million fucking times. I'm sorry, can I swear on here?
Absolutely. Fuck yeah.
Like, I want to watch it a million fucking times. And like the second time, like I'll take it apart even more. And if I have movies I love that I've completely dissected. And but I think when you start questioning the behind the scenes early on, you learn to, both love a movie for what it is and discover kind of how its inception was. And sometimes I think those stories are just as amazing as the movie itself.
I think you hit it right on the nail. Special effects has the power to tell the story of a film just as much as the script itself. It tells a lot about, one, how much effort are we going to see in this film? Like the kills. Everybody, especially slasher films, American Sasquatch. I say you also did the ruins. part of the big part of horror is the practical effects. I mean, it's almost as important as the cinematography, as the actor performances. So your role, should always be primary. And if what you're doing is top-notch work, it can not only take a film that's good and make it great, it could take a film that had a really low budget that may have been under the radar and turn it into something that's running through film festivals that we've seen. It can singularly hold up a film. That is the power of practical effects. And from our time going to conventions, the artists are very well respected. It's a craft. They're artisans. The good ones can create on the spot. They're constantly creating. Sometimes they go beyond film itself. They're just creating to create. So we have all the love and respect for those artists. I wanted to talk a little bit about The Ruins because in looking through your resume, oh, I love that film. I know Kevin saw American Sasquatch. But we also have questions on just what kind of creative process do you start with? Do you start with a mold? Do you start with someone else's idea?
Let me explain The Ruins, because
Yeah,
the way it's credited. When I mean, I'm from Boston. I went to Tom Savini School, straight out of high school. Then I graduated from there. I went to the makeup designery out in California, straight out there. Tried to find work. It's kind of slow. When I came back to Boston, um, I was starting to build, be like a big fish in a small pond in some sense, considering how many years ago this was, learning the trade. And after a series of doing some shorts, I got a phone call saying, "Hey, will you do some promotional makeup effects for us for this little show that became The Walking Dead?" Um, a year later, I get a phone call, I believe from the same people, saying, "Hey, we have this movie called The Ruins coming out," which, it was at first it was actually Neil Marshall's Doomsday, but I guess someone else got that job. But when they were doing promotional marketing effects, here in New England, we have Newbury Comics. And I actually did a live window display of these two girls screaming that are covered in blood, like they've been running through the forest. And, it was a marketing behind the scenes for the movie itself. So that's what it was. That's what my job was for The Ruins. I wasn't on set, but it was a marketing behind the scenes, of getting people to come in and be like, "Hey, check out our movie." And this woman with a little baby walk by, and they see these girls screaming. They're covered in blood out on Newbury Street. This woman comes in and she's like, "This is horrible. What's the story behind this?" The manager points at me, and I'm like, "Wait, I'm just the makeup effects guy. I'm just here doing a job." And I say to her, "As much as and as upset as you are, do you like scary movies?" She says, "I love them." I said, "Because this is guerrilla marketing for The Ruins, coming soon from Steven Spielberg's DreamWorks Productions." Completely threw her off, and I'm so glad I was able to do that, because that kind of just changed the whole. I was able to diffuse the situation. So that's what the story was with The Ruins. I haven't thought of that in ages.
So, and The Ruins is a favorite of mine as well. Um, did you have, even though you weren't on set, do you have any remembrances that you can compare that as a fairly big production to other smaller productions that you may have worked on? I'm always curious. Um,
Well,
is there a difference between big
I,
versus small?
from what I've come across, I have friends that are in the union and they work on big stuff. And, I am non-union. I work on a lot of 10 cent stuff. But if they hire me as an independent contractor to come in, whether if it's someone like Miramax or DreamWorks, if they're prepared, and they can reiterate to you whatever it is that they need, it's preparation is everything, and communication is everything. And I think, sometimes communication is across the board where stuff can get lost in translation. Or if it's A, B, and C and everything's all set, it's rare and it's wonderful when that happens. But there's always a minimum of fuss that you might have to get through. But for the most part, I would say it really just if I think it's all about planning. And I think between those two things, that's where they're very similar. Um, but for I think by virtue of the number of people you might have on a production that are communicating, the more people it can get a little more complicated. Someone might say, you know, monkey, bear, whatever, squirrel. And by the 10th person, they're saying, badger, giraffe, and, it's almost something completely different. But, I think when you work on small core projects, stuff gets reiterated the way it should be. And I like working that way. But when I've worked with the big boys in certain situations, thankfully, it just boils down to everyone else dealing with what they have to. Then they just get to me, and so it's the waiting game, I guess you would say, more than anything else. So in the bigger stuff, there's a little more waiting around. We're on the smaller budget stuff. Things are just moving fast.
So, I guess my follow up on that is do you find are you given more creative freedom on a bigger budget, a big maybe a bigger more time to create your work versus a small film, or is it the reverse?
Well, I think smaller budgets usually you have more freedom with the bigger stuff. Like if the one thing I learned about the unions is if you're a makeup artist and a carpenter puts his hammer on your chair, you can't touch that hammer. He has to. And so sometimes, you hear stories like that. And it's just, I'm the type of guy, I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? It's like, I need to get to work, I mean, I'll take it out. But some people will be like, hey, you're not supposed to touch that, and I'm like, well, then why did he put it there in the first place? It's on him. That's the big budget stuff that drives me crazy that I hear about. Smaller stuff, it's like, yeah, you can put your shit there. Don't worry about it. Just, make sure you don't lose it. Yeah. And you're just like, coordinating where when it's a small troop, it makes it much easier. And, you have like 10, 15 people, that's where I kind of like to max out. If any more than that, then I feel like I need another person who I'm working with so we can, I mean, the biggest troop I've coordinated was actually for a sports event directly across the street from Tom Brady's house. And Bob Kraft was, I believe, the neighbor's house. And I had about maybe 12, 14 artists that were all just making people up. And it was like a silent party. I mean, it was really cool. Like, they have the headphones on, they're listening to music, and we're making people up as like witch doctors and all sorts of fun, crazy, things. But, it's, big budget or small budget, planning, because usually there's no money in small budget stuff. But the more people you have can make up for, just moving things forward. You always want to meet your days and get the shots that you need. And when you can do that, that's great. But, if you don't have the manpower sometimes, then, that can be, holding you back. It's like, okay, we'll get it tomorrow, and
Right.
you never want to get too far behind. But the worst is when you have something like a festival or a deadline you're up against. And then that's when you're really starting to maybe like cut corners in certain places of the script. Like, we can't do this. Yes, we want to do this, but we can't. And so I think it's hard, like there's really no such thing as a perfect movie.
So I want to switch gears. You have a few things that you're going to show us.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Maybe a couple things.
yeah. So I'll show you a small bit.
And let us know what they're from also.
This
So
is
we'll put
for,
that in on display.
this is for the Wicked Hollows. Basically, last year I made about 450 feet.
Can you spot like that, Kevin?
Can I spot like that?
I guess this speaker. Yeah, that'll be fine.
And I'll actually turn
Oh,
this so you can see kind of a rough idea.
Oh my.
And this is probably 395 feet that we salvaged of 450 feet that was originally created. And we just had enough to do the effect. I've been working on this for the past few days. Someone's going to get riddled with bullets. I know, I know it looks a little like kind of like a strange variation of Freddy Krueger. But when this is basically covered in blood and we have actually like Vaseline mixed with black liquid makeup with fake blood and even some glitter, because sometimes when you have that want to have that light reflect on blood, little glitter goes a long way. So all that's going to be covered up in here with fake blood on top
yeah.
of it.
Is this just any glitter like you can get at a dollar store
Yeah, you can
or
use dollar store glitter. If you put it in your blood and you're shooting like at low light levels and you want to get some cast, some sort of reflection from the light, can't go wrong. I learned that from the Lost Boys. That's what Greg Canham used. This was going to be a Wendigo demon.
uh-huh. Now, how hard was it to craft the horns? The antler.
That is actually an Amazon purchase of a deer skull that I basically augment. I guess the set term would be kludge from Star Wars.
Uh-huh.
It's kind of
Yeah.
like mishmashing stuff. But I took basically a deer skull and put it on top of the skeleton body, just making it look like a diseased Wendigo creature. And I was going to give this to my girlfriend, but
Oh, that's a Valentine's Day gift. Absolutely.
yeah,
I
but
would too. Like, babe, here, I made this for you.
yeah, but
And if she says, "Oh my God, thank you so much," that's a keeper.
I mean, she loves it, she wants it, but we're kind of estranged right now.
Oh, but that would make a great Valentine's gift for unless the person is Princess Diana or something. Something like that maybe somebody in the country club set might not appreciate that too much.
So instead of
But
candle in the wind, candle in the Wendigo.
so
So,
go ahead. I was gonna say, go ahead, please.
Your question is probably more constructive than mine is.
I was simply gonna say, what is your current project that you're working on?
Multiple.
So about 18 different ones, right?
Well, I mean, I'm probably working on maybe 3 or 4 right now that are starting to lap over. We have only a few days. We technically have 2 days left. We are like done with Wicked Hollows. We just have 2 more days where we need to go in and finish that up next weekend. The weekend of the 23rd, I'm actually going to Albany, New York, to do makeup effects on myself for a short I'm doing with a friend of mine called Drone Wars. And the director of that project, Patrick McCabe, I've known him for like 20 years. And he's like, yeah, I'll not fly me down, but get the rail down, picking up the tab for everything, which is awesome. And just, shoot some makeup effects. And then I also have preparing for Our Man Funk with Bill Whedon from Sergeant Kabuki Man, NYPD. We also have Debbie Rochon just became attached. Mark Torgel from Toxic Avenger. We have a lot of cool trauma alumni that I'm going to be working with. And I'm also in the movie, so I'm thrilled to actually kind of step into a featured role for the very first time, as well as doing special effects makeup.
All right.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
So yeah, I mean, so the makeup effects. I mean, things are really busy, and I'm really thankful for, all these opportunities, that have, are coming up. I've just been courted for another production just within the past few days, to help with out with some folks, in May. So, we're figuring out the details of that. But it's nice to.
I was going to say your work it speaks for itself. What you've shown us here, that's high quality stuff. You can tell the detail just on the mold you did with the gunshot wounds. While you were talking, I was just drawn to the different types of wounds. You made multiple different variations. It wasn't just pock marks, like especially the one on top looks like a piece of the flesh got blown off. I
Yeah.
love details like that. True horror fans will catch those details, and producers of horror films, those who are looking for effects artists, they're both looking at films. Maybe they're going to film festivals, seeing what's playing. They're also asking their friends, like, "I saw you did this. Who did your makeup, man? That stuff was awesome, right?" Your recognition is spreading to places you don't even know you only realize, because of the work that you made in previous film. That's the amazing thing is your resume, the more effort and creativity and ingenuity you put in, as realistic as it is in films, that just builds your repertoire, right? And as you say, you just got courted for another film. I mean, that's going to continue happening based on what we've seen.
Now, I'd like an idea, just as the rudimentary fan on the street who doesn't have an idea about how effects are made, practical effects are made. Um, can you tell me, like at a conservative estimate, how long it takes you to do a particular application or particular work? Can it be something that takes you months, or is it generally something that can take a week or so?
Well, I've been in situations where if they're like, "Hey, we need a body in a week," then they need a body in a week. But normally, I like to allow myself a little more time. Um, I mean, if there's a will, there's a way. But if someone says, "Hey, we need a body in less than a week," then it's like, "Well, do you have a budget to work with?" And they're like, you know, I'm like, okay. So then, I would just, come up with ways like making like a PVC, skeleton, and then wrapping it in foam. And then, if it's just a mannequin they need, and like if it's something being thrown off something and they want some movement, then, with the PVC, you just kind of make a hinge joint in certain places, wrap foam around it, take into consideration the cosmetics, and sometimes you might have to go to spend a little money yourself and go like a quick Halloween mask and just like spray paint it like a flesh tone so you can have it look like a facsimile of someone. But if they want someone to look exactly like something, then you need the life casting process. You need to basically have
That's
that,
money.
yeah, and that's where the money is. But Roger Corman is another one of my heroes when it comes to makeup effects. So I always like to call what I bring to the table as an effects artist the Chinese menu approach, where it's like, this is what it should cost, this is what it will cost to get us by, and this is what it will cost with the bare minimum. And they're like, "Well, we don't want to go with the bare minimum." So it's like, okay, but we can't shoot for the stars. So it's like, okay, let me come back. We'll figure out some numbers. We'll simplify some stuff, because at the end of the day, you know, it's usually coming out of our pockets, where if we fundraise, or whether it's our own productions or even helping out in others. But whatever, you keep the receipt, give it to the production. And some productions are actually pretty good at, getting your money back to you. Sometimes they might not be. But it just varies, where if someone says, "I need a body in a week," and it's like, "Well, this is going to cost me a few bucks, but it can be done. We can get foam, we can get some pipe, we can get some spray paint and wrap it up in duct tape. I mean, I've done a lot of duct tape dummies, over the years. And the great thing is, if you know the person who is going to be getting killed or whatever, you make a duct tape dummy, you put them in junk clothes, you duct tape them up, you get some peach colored, or what I like to also do is take some latex, with like flesh color and just kind of seal everything. So it looks like a flesh tone underneath. And then you can put wardrobe on top. And I always say the more wardrobe, the better. Because when it comes to dummies, like you don't want to be seeing too much, flesh tone because sometimes it might not look good. And you need to go back in, you need to latex it even more and just, get the duct tape, that sheen, get that out of there, dull it down. And, it happens. But on a big budget stuff, like if they like, hey, we want an alien, then you're paying good money to these top sculptors that have been around for ages, and they will have their, you know, 2 to 4 to maybe 6 months. I mean, Avatar. I mean, the development in that movie was so long, and the sculptures that they came up with, were even like Hellboy. The pre-production on that, the original. I mean, the better your concepts are, I think you're going to have a very compelling character. And sometimes a low budget, like a slasher, whatever, like a throwaway, they might spend more time looking for the mask than actually the script itself. But if they're like, oh my God, we got this great mask, no one else has the design, let's make a killer out of it. And it's like, yeah, that sounds good. And so you just do what you can. And I mean, as a film production, you inherit your problems. You know what you're getting yourself into. And I think it's funny when you have producers and directors and they're arguing over, like the direction that we're going in. It's like, we already know what we're going in. And then sometimes you have producers who are like, are we spending money that we're not supposed to be spending? And it's like, I'll tell them tomorrow. He's too happy right now. Don't burst his bubble. And then, the start of the next day, it's like, hey, I thought we had so-and-so back. He was going to be my mental crush today. No, sorry, he can't be here. And it's like, shit, who's going to be my friend today? And I'll hey, Billy Coyne here, special makeup effects. What the hell do you need? Let's solve some problems together, buddy. And it's like, okay, cool, my new friend, and it's like, let's, and if they have that enthusiasm, I mean, I call it the Carl Denham syndrome. And, from King Kong, it's like they have all this vitality. Yeah, we're going to do this. And I feel like I need to match their enthusiasm sometimes. And it's great when you can do that, because sometimes working with directors, if they're all for it, they know exactly what they want to do. And if they're like, the scene looks good, but I don't know why. And it kills me, because I always feel a director should know what he wants. And he's like, it's not what I want. I don't know, but I don't know. And it's like, all right, boys, let's give them some options. And, you need to figure shit out at the end. I mean, filmmaking is problem solving. That's the best way to put it.
So talk a little bit, because I noticed in your credits and your amongst your resume that you kind of spent some time at the Tom Savini School of Makeup.
Yeah, I went straight out of high school. I was there from 2002 to 2004, and I absolutely loved it.
What is Tom? What got imparted to you from that school? A lesson from Tom, regarding, I'm assuming that he tends to impart a little bit of life lesson in addition to the makeup, in addition to making of effects and so forth.
Well, one thing I learned, that this industry can be cutthroat, and the students can be cutthroat. Sometimes the teachers can be ball busters. And truth be told, I wouldn't have it any other way, because those are the life lessons you need to learn. Everyone's not going to be your friend, but if you can share the same objective at the end of the day, that's what it really boils down to. And I think that's what I really can take away from Tom Savini's program, even though I feel extremely lucky where I had a good relationship with a lot of people in my class. And I knew of Tom and his reputation, but I didn't know all of his credits. So Tom at orientation, I mean, he was a character, out of the gate. And, I've known him now for 20 years. In fact, my arm dislocated at a convention after I set up my booth, and for the second time, I finish setting up my booth. I jump in the pool, arm comes out of the socket, and I didn't trust anyone in that place. And I see Savini, and I said, Savini, you're the only one I know that knows her anatomy. I would only trust you to put my arm back in its socket. Do you mind? And I was so drunk and I was so stoned, but I was in so much pain because I never felt like the arm, being out of the socket for that long. And they were like, yeah, I'm sorry. I don't think I should. And, so that was, in retrospect, I'm glad he didn't because, but either way, I mean, when you do conventions, I mean, Tom's been doing them forever, but for me, it's been 20 years and it's like a gypsy lifestyle. You become friendly with, the vendors. It's great seeing, celebrities, on multiple occasions. And so, I really enjoy the convention scene as well.
So, first of all, let's talk about what you are. You've mentioned a few things you're currently working on, more than maybe a half a dozen, projects. Is there one that you, in particular, can talk about that you want people to, to know it's a really exciting project? Perhaps is there something you could name?
Well, Wicked Hollows, I mean, I've come in not just as a special makeup effects artist and designer, but as an executive producer. And I'm really proud of the work that we have done in this. And, I think it's going to start by the end of this year. It should be complete. I mean, we're in, essentially post-production has started. So I'm really excited about that. I'm really excited about Our Man Funk, even though it's not a horror movie, but kind of like a throwback to, I mean, how did Bill Whedon describe it? Described it as a Parenthood meets Death Wish. And
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, and I'm basically a street urchin, piece of shit human being. I mean, I'm almost thinking like the Cretans from like Nukem High. And so, I mean, I've been growing my hair out, I mean, for like 2 years almost. And I'm growing this out, and, I'm just going to be slicking it all back, almost, kind of greaser, gross, street guy, because it'd be fun to act. And, I love entertaining people and, just as much as doing makeup effects, but, I've, I've always entertained, and I'm really excited about that production just to switch it up and just feel lucky it's a featured role.
I'm somehow picturing uh, Steve Martin and Charles Bronson
Yeah.
somehow working together and being directed by Ron Howard.
Yeah.
Uh,
But I love it because, you have Bill Whedon and he has his family, and, his family, they become like vigilantes. And, I'm part of these, drug pushing street urchins, basically, beating up little old ladies and, selling, drugs in the basketball courts. And I just get my comeuppance in the most of ways that should be really interesting. I just don't want to divulge the makeup effects or anything on that project too soon. But it's dark, it's twisted, it's a family revenge fantasy, as they've also been promoting it as, and very gory. And it's directed by AJ Cutler, who's a great director. And like I said, I mean, Bill Whedon's in this, and Debbie Rochon just signed on, and Zach Amico.
Debbie is fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, we're really lucky. We have a lot of wonderful folks who have become attached to this project, and I feel so fortunate to be on the same ride with these folks.
Now, can you say you can't talk about the effects, too much specifically, but can you say that there will be ample effects, ample practical effects?
I will say there will be, I think, corpulous is the best word, corpulent amounts of blood, corpulous amounts of things of a disgusting nature that will truly unsettle you. We're going to be doing effects I've never done before that are some of the most vilest things I have ever read. And that's where I'm extremely excited on the makeup effect side of Our Man Funk.
See, I need to see something where I have to afterwards immediately go to a therapist. That. So, is this that kind of film?
It is. In fact, this even reminds me. I remember I did a short film for the Boston Underground Film Festival called The Dissolving Man, and I created effects where people were literally running to the bathroom to vomit. To me, as an effects artist, when you can create an effect that will make someone physically sick, um, there's something incredibly vindicating about that, as gross as that may sound. Um, but we had like pustules that were being oozed out. And, this guy cuts his dick off because he's just, out of his mind. And seeing people run to the bathroom throwing up, I mean, I literally stood up in the back of the theater and I'm like, I feel vindicated. I
I
mean,
was gonna say, you were the type of guy that would be in the back of the theater going, "Fuck yeah!"
yeah, well, I mean, but I mean, I am horrible. I can't watch stuff I work on because I'm always looking at the stuff, like all the imperfections, I'm looking at. I can't do that. And I learned from Savini for effects. He's like, focus on, the audience and you want their reaction because at the end of the day, they're going to make or break your movie. You create an effect. And if they're like, you did your job. If you create something and they're like, oh it's like, I wish I pushed a little more. But you just want to do the best that you can at the end of the day, and sometimes you can get it. And the funny thing is, when it comes to blood, it's never the first take. It's usually one of the last takes that you're using, because those are like one take wonders. And sometimes it's just a pain in the ass when it comes to directing, gore sequences.
Well, I
Well,
just
Bill,
go ahead. Go ahead.
I wanted to thank you very much, Bill, for
Yeah.
for coming on, talking about all the stories, showing us your exhibits. We're excited for the Wicked Hollows. We'll be following you on IMDb. Hopefully, we come across your work at film festivals. If you ever find yourself in California, Sinister Creature Con, pull up a booth. We'll have a talk. But where can we follow you on social media?
You can follow me on Facebook, Billy period Coyne, Coyne, or you could even follow me on Instagram at Mad Dr. C, all lowercase, all one word, MADDRC.
Awesome.
If
Awesome.
we type in Ghoulies fan, we won't find anything related to you. I don't.
It's not your burner account, is it?
It's my solo. Don't destroy me.
Thank you, Billy Coyne, for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
Wonderful, and thank you for showing us some of your props, some of the things that you've been working on. Fantastic design. You are truly gifted, and we hope nothing but success for you in the future.
This was a blast. Thank you so much, guys. I really enjoyed this.
It's
Absolutely.
always about horror. It's always about horror with us.
That's why we're here.
Let that blood flow. Let it flow.
Anthony, take us out.
Watch horror films. Keep America strong.
Have a good one, everybody.